For those of you who are new to Thoughtworks, Thoughtworks is a global software company founded on three main business pillars. So we believe in running sustainable businesses, championing software excellence to revolutionize the IT industry, and we advocate for social and economic justice. From all of this, we are also a big group of passionate technologists, and this meetup is for us a great opportunity to keep in touch and continuously exchange with the New York software community so we can share our findings, our experience, and our opinions on emerging tech trends, and open to debate. So we are very open to feedbacks, discussion. So you will see we have a Q&A session after the talk. And also, before you leave, don't forget to leave us feedback on the feedback wall if you haven't yet. Anything you liked or anything you would like to see in the next topics or something you didn't like, just overwhelm us with feedbacks. So about this meetup, we touched a lot of topics so far in the previous weeks. We have a very good schedule. Every 2 weeks we are talking of new topics. And let me give you some announcement for the next upcoming talks. So in a couple of weeks, 15th of August, we will have Jordan Brown talking about how to become product-centric organization. And then the next week, 24th of August, will be Rebecca Higgins talking about mobile and iOS. But check the meetup page because we will post the exact dates and details in these days. Today's speaker is Adarsh Shah. Adarsh is a lead consultant for Thoughtworks for more than 3 years. He's got a lot of experience leading delivery teams for a product, but also platform engineering teams. He's very excited about distributed systems today and cloud technologies, but he's very passionate about DevOps practices and platform engineering. And through a lot of experiences in the last 2-3 years, he gained good knowledge so that he will share today about why, as you can see, why a platform engineering team, having a separate team will be, why and when it will be a good thing for an organization to promote and push DevOps practices. So I would just add one quick reminder. We have a new thing today. You can see in different walls, inside and outside of the room, some papers with a QR code. So if you're interested in learning more about DevOps, we have a lot of content, talks, YouTube videos. So just scan the QR code or copy the link and feel free to get more information. So I think that's it. So please welcome Adarsh with a big applause.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. As Giuseppe said, my name is Adarsh, and today I'll be talking about enabling DevOps culture with a platform engineering team. I'll be also talking about my experience leading and being part of the team, and what were the challenges and lessons that I learned being part of the team. So let's get started. So the talk is divided into 3 different parts. The first one being, what are the different team structures that enable DevOps? And I'll be showing a few different models that I've worked with. The second one being digging more deeper into platform engineering team and when and why it's useful. And the third and the last one, what were the challenges and lessons that I've learned from my experience. So the first one being the team structures. So I'll just walk you through the history of how Dev and Ops and how the DevOps culture started. And so I'll be going through some basics, so just bear with me for a few minutes. Okay, so back in the days, there used to be a dev team, an ops team, a big wall in between, and then the devs used to write the software and then throw it over the wall. And then they used to go party, right? They used to celebrate the release, and the ops team used to take care of the deployment, monitoring servers, all of these things, monitoring application in production and supporting it. Of course, that was a bad thing, right? The problem with this was that it was throw it over the wall mentality, where the devs, once they write the software, they committed to source control. That's it. They said, my feature is done. I'm going to go have a drink. And then the ops used to worry about deploying and taking care of the software in production. That kind of, because of that, it promoted bad practice, because devs did not think of operations and how their software will be running in production. There was lack of communication between dev and ops, because it was throw it over the wall mentality, and they did not communicate and collaborate properly. So after that came dev and ops collaboration. So this was the first step towards devs and ops coming together and working together. So the wall that was in between goes away. The devs and ops start working together, collaborating. They start pairing on stories. They start working on automating software deployment together. They started working on monitoring and support in production. So devs got involved in like, they got pager duties, started supporting application in production. So they knew what it takes for an application to run in production. So they would think about it when they write code. And things like server provisioning and configuration and automating that. So, and then devs kind of go back to their teams and then take care of the deployment and monitoring and server provisioning and configuration for the team, for the part of the application that they own. So this gave power to the devs to do all those things which they didn't properly understand before, but it empowered them and also gave them opportunity to understand the other side of the wall. So that helped with collaboration and communication. So let me walk you through some of the advantages of when they started collaborating together. So the first one is an obvious one. It improved communication and collaboration. They started working together closely. And that helped with things like reducing feature lead time. Feature lead time being from the time when the business asked for a feature to the time it makes it to production. So since the pipeline from when the dev committed the code to when it makes it to production became smoother because of better communication and collaboration, it helped reducing the feature lead time. Innovation. This is a big part of the DevOps culture, where it encourages innovation, and this helped by enabling rapid experimentation. Since the teams got together, they started seeing the problems of each other's side. They started innovating. They started experimenting on things like automation and CI/CD. So once they started experimenting, they saw some of the stuff that works better, and that actually enabled innovation. Agility. This is a big part, being agile, where you can react quickly to your customer needs. So with better communication, collaboration, and innovation, it helped in the organizations being more agile and reacting quickly to the customer needs. And obviously that helped the business. Software stability and quality. Since the devs started thinking about software from an operational perspective, and ops started seeing how the devs work, it helped in software stability and quality, because they both started thinking about the other side. So yeah, those are some of the advantages. Obviously, there are others as well. So let's look at some of the criteria that I have seen for this model to work. So from my experience, what I've seen is, of course, you need devs and ops need a shared vision, because it's not just about devs writing code and committing to source control now, and the operations just deploying and supporting in production. Now it's also about a shared vision on how you can make the whole software delivery process better and how you can deliver more value to business. So there was a shared vision that you need for this model to work. Organizational maturity. So this is a big part of it, where if you are starting the journey just now and you still have those silos, it takes time before you can get there, because things like operations folks getting comfortable with pairing with devs, using techniques like TDD. If devs are using TDD or other extreme programming techniques, the ops folks needs to get used to that. The dev team members, the delivery team needs to get comfortable with the operational stack and how that gets. So there needs a certain level of maturity in an organization, and it takes some time for that journey to, if you have started it just now. So yeah, I mean, this already mentioned that delivery team needs skills to self-manage operational stack. As I mentioned earlier, that the devs own the delivery infrastructure for the part of the application they work on. And another thing was also about a challenge being sometimes it becomes difficult to have consistency in your tools and technologies, because if all the different delivery teams own their delivery infrastructure, sometimes it if you're not mature enough, it becomes difficult to keep consistent technology and tool stack, which in a way you should allow experimentation and autonomy in those tools and technologies, but sometimes you also don't want to make it out of control. You want to make sure that you have 2 or 3 different kind of monitoring tools based on your needs, not 10 different. Okay, so from my experience, and obviously this is not one size fits all, so there are different team structures that I have seen, and they help enabling DevOps culture in different ways, but I'll go through them quickly. The focus today is on platform engineering, but I'll go through them. So this is the first one that I just explained. It's Dev and Ops collaboration, where you have 2 separate teams, but they collaborate very closely. The second one being cross-functional team, where, as you can see, the devs are all of different colors, so they have different capabilities, they have different, they all can do most of the stuff, but you have some dev folks who are more operational, some who have more database capabilities, some have better front-end knowledge. So they all work together in one team, and that's why they are cross-functional. And then they take the software from the time you write code and commit to source control to how it makes to production and support it there as well. The next one being site reliability engineering, which is the Google model, and there is a good book about it as well. It's called Site Reliability Engineering. So basically that model, there is a dev team, there is an SRE team, and there is a handoff of software. It's kind of similar to when you have a separate ops team, but as you can see here, that the SRE is a combination of devs and ops, where the focus of SRE team is automating stuff, doing more development tasks than just operations, where they have members who have operational knowledge as well. But it's a combination of both. They heavily rely on data, which means they look at logs and metrics to see how they can work on making software running smoothly in production. So their focus is not just operations, but making sure automation is done. And there is, when the handoff happens from dev to SRE, the software needs to meet certain standards before they can hand it off. And the other part of SRE is also where SREs are also empowered, which means that they have all the capabilities to kind of say, no, you can't deploy this software to production, because it's not meeting the standards. So that's the model that Google uses, and now a lot of other companies use as well. And last but not the least, and the focus for today, is the platform team, and I'll explain more about that in next slides. So yeah, I mean, these 4 models, the common team structures I have seen. There are others as well. There's a really good website called devopstopologies.com, where the author talks about different structures, but some of these are not there, but this is basically based on what I've seen in most commonly used. Okay, so let me introduce you to platform engineering. So what is a platform engineering team? Platform engineering team is responsible for operating a platform which enables delivery teams to self-service, deploy, and operate systems with reduced lead time and complexity. So focus here being self-service. As you can see that it's in bold, which means that platform team is not just doing some magic behind the scenes, but they are actually providing self-service platform where devs can actually use the platform without not being a ticket-based system where the devs create a ticket and then send it to the platform and then they do some magic. But there is a lot of collaboration between the dev and platform team as well, and I'll go into that later. But the focus here is self-service deploys, infrastructure as code, API-driven, where they provide APIs for the dev teams and the ops teams to use, rather than them like creating tickets and talking to them and figuring out. Delivery teams are still responsible for deploying the software and maintaining the software on the platform, right? So they use the tools and use those tools to deploy and maintain and operate the software. So this basically is helpful when you need a significant investment in your tooling, your automation, and the dev teams lack the skills to self-manage the operations and the application stack in some cases. So yeah, that's where I have seen where platform engineering team is helpful. Okay, so what are some of the responsibilities? And I'll go through some of the example responsibilities here. The platform team, so your customers are the app dev teams, delivery teams, and the ops team are your customers. And you have the platform here. This is an API. So basically, app dev teams and ops team call the API, an endpoint and an API. So it's API driven. So that's one of the responsibilities, making it API driven. Self-service pipelines. So the API, when you call API, it can self-serve the pipelines, create pipelines for your teams. Well, in this case, I've used Jenkins as an example, but obviously you can use any CI tool. Container platform. So with containers and a lot of teams started using microservices and other architectures that encourage using containers, maintaining that container platform. So in this case, I've shown Kubernetes, but obviously you can use any other container platform. And then basically server provisioning in behind. So let's say EC2 in this instance. So basically, as you can see, your customers, your platform's customers, which are app dev teams and ops team, they call the platform, they call an API, and that automatically gives you the platform, like whatever provisioning is needed behind the scene happens. Similarly, for monitoring tools, if you're using App Dynamics, it gives you that, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, if you need analytics, then you, in this case, Google Analytics. So yeah, these are just some of the example tools that the platform team can manage, and some of these responsibilities. So basically, you have a platform, you have all these capabilities which are self-serve, and your customers will be calling the API to get those different services. So how does an example workflow look like for if I am a dev? How does it look for me? So as a dev, let's say I create a new microservice, and I commit that code and push it to my Git repository. Once I push it, I also, since I'm using containers here, I have my Docker file in there, and then I also have a YAML file, which is used for my Kubernetes orchestration and scheduling. So yeah, again, the platform on this side, and then this is your API. So once I commit it, it'll make an API call, and ideally there will be a Jenkins in between, which kind of Jenkins or some kind of a CI tool in between, which will trigger an API call. It'll do that, and the first time you self-serve the pipeline for a new microservice. And then going forward, if you call the same API with a different endpoint, let's say you want to deploy, it'll automatically deploy your service to these platforms and register it with your monitoring service, with your analytics and all those things. So yeah, as a dev, you look at the platform as an API and as a service that you can use, call different endpoints, and that triggers and calls different platforms that different services that the platform team provides. So this is kind of, if anyone has used Heroku or Travis CI or AWS CodeStar, this kind of looks similar, where with Heroku you can actually have a configuration file, call Heroku, and it automatically configures all the different bells and whistles that you need to deploy your software. So yeah, I mean, Heroku is good as well, but for an enterprise, for companies which have specific requirements, where you have needs that are not supported by Heroku, and also things that you want to provision and support differently, platform is something that you might want to use. Okay, so next one being platform maturity, and this is also based on some of my experience, but so you have your platform here, and there's a maturity here. So what do you need bare minimum to run your application or services, right? So the first level of maturity will be just provide compute, network, and data, right? So just provide that to your customers, being delivery teams and ops teams, and they will take care of other stuff. So this is the first level of maturity for a platform team. The second being providing container platform, providing service discovery, fault tolerance, monitoring, and all of these things, which gives you a second level where the delivery teams now don't need to worry about service discovery or fault tolerance or monitoring. The platform actually provides that to them. And the third and last level being provide self-service pipelines and regression testing tools, and all of these. If you're using serverless, providing serverless platform to you, where it automatically provisions your Lambda or whatever serverless tool you're using. So as you can see, I mean, this is just based on my experience, but obviously there are other things that can fall here, but you get an idea of a level where you just provide bare minimum for your application to run, but then provide other services that makes it easier to do continuous delivery and easier to run and operate your system in production. Okay, so does this mean that I'm telling you that I created a separate DevOps team to solve my silo problem? Actually, no, that's not what I'm saying. There is a separate team, but that doesn't mean that there is a separate silo that I created. So let's look at it, why it's not a separate silo. So as you can see here, these are my delivery teams, which usually you have multiple delivery teams working on different parts of the application, providing different services to the business. You have an ops team where they take care of operations, and then you have a platform engineering team. That's another one that gets added here. So what happens here is platform team works closely with the ops team, They figure out what kind of environments, what kind of automation in terms of infrastructure as code, what kind of tooling is needed, what kind of monitoring tools they need. They work with them, collaborate with them closely, and then automate that stuff. So they might even work and pair on some of the stories that the platform engineering team is working. So they collaborate closely to figure out how should the delivery infrastructure look and how should the automation behind that should look. And then the platform engineering team also works and collaborates closely with the app dev teams to figure out what are the requirements for their software to be deployed to environments, what kind of, whether they are using some kind of like Java versus .NET versus any other tools that they need, any other languages and any frameworks that they need, what kind of monitoring, application monitoring they need. So they collaborate closely with the delivery teams and figure that out. And they also pair on some stories with them together, so they understand what's going on the platform side. And then that doesn't mean that dev and ops stop talking to each other. They also collaborate on stuff. They collaborate on stuff like how do you run application in production. Devs also take over pager duties. If you have pager duty where devs support application in production, but they also work really closely with ops to figure out how do you actually operate your software in production. So as you can see, this doesn't mean that you have this another silo that's created and you have this platform and they do some magic and you get all the tools and technologies. But there is a lot of collaboration between different teams. Okay, so next section is about the challenges and lessons I've learned being part of a platform, actually multiple platform engineering teams. Let me just. All right. So before we start talking about the challenges, though, I want to introduce the 3 ways, if you guys don't already know. But these are the principles underpinning DevOps that are mentioned in the DevOps Handbook and the Phoenix Project. I highly recommend these books. They are really good if you want to understand DevOps culture and the transformation. If you are in a journey in DevOps transformation, they are really good books. Okay, so what are these 3 ways? The first one being systems thinking. Systems thinking is about thinking about the entire value stream mapping. So instead of thinking about your part of the pipeline, you're actually thinking about how does the software go from writing a code, committing to source control, to making it to production. So back in the days where you had silos, where devs were separate, ops were separate, the business was separate, like no one thought about the whole value stream mapping. So this also helps in figuring out the bottlenecks. If your bottleneck is when you deploy a software, from the time you deploy a software to, let's say, QA environment to production, figure out those bottlenecks, and then you can actually improve the whole value stream from start to finish and make it better. If you read those 2 books, especially Phoenix Project, it's a novel on DevOps, and it tells you, gives you some of the scenarios where they actually remove those bottlenecks. Second one being amplify feedback loops. So feedback is really key in Agile, in DevOps, where you constantly keep getting feedback, get quick feedback, and then react based on the feedback. If you get positive feedback, keep doing what you're doing. If you get something that the users don't like, react to it and then adjust accordingly. So feedback is really critical, and since you collaborate and communicate closely and work together, getting feedback is easier and faster. And the last one being culture of continual experimentation and learning. So this is key. One of the the key as well. Like all 3 are key, but this one is important as well, where you constantly experiment. You constantly experiment on tools, technologies, methodologies that you use for your delivery infrastructure, for example. Keep learning, and then keep learning from your mistakes, keep learning from your success, and then keep applying that to improve your pipeline from start to finish. So these are the three ways. And the reason I mention it here is because I've used these to solve some of the challenges that I had, and think in a way where you're optimizing the workflow from start to finish. So the first challenge that I've seen is what I mentioned earlier, is like, how do you actually avoid creating another silo, right? So you now just created another team. How do you make sure that that's not another silo that you created? So this actually goes with the first and second way that I spoke about. So systems thinking, you're not creating a silo, and by that, you're actually improving the entire value stream mapping. And also it amplifies feedback loops, so that because you're working together, collaborating on stuff, it amplifies the feedback loop and helps. So that's why you don't want to create another silo. So how do you actually do that? So one of the key things about platform is that they are enablers, not just doers. What does that mean? That means that devs don't, as I mentioned earlier, don't just create tickets and throw it over the wall, and then some magic happens behind the scene and they get this new pipeline, or they get this container platform. But they actually work closely together and work with devs. So one of the examples I would give is, one of the places what we did is allowed delivery and ops teams to actually create pull requests for the platform changes. So if they all have access to the platform repository, they can make changes and create a pull request. The platform team would review the request. If it all looks good, merge it. So they have power to actually create pull requests. In some cases, you might even allow them to make changes directly, but it depends on your organizations. But they still have the power to do that. Another approach that has worked for me in the past is cross-team internships. What this means is, actually, let me just give you an example. So one place we started implementing pipeline as code so that it's all automated and maintainability is better. What we did is we created used pipeline as code for some of the test pipelines that we had. Once we did that, we tested with those test pipelines. We had one of the devs from a delivery team join us as an intern for 1 week. They came, they joined us for 1 week, and we started converting all the pipelines that their team was using to use pipeline as code. So this way, they join us as intern, and then you keep rotating your interns. They all get that knowledge, and they understand what's going on behind the scenes. They take that knowledge back to their teams, and then they become a go-to person or a key contact person for their team if there is an issue with pipeline as code. But they also share the knowledge within their team. The next one, constant pairing with app dev teams. Yeah, if you can't do internships, you can even pair on certain stories as and when needed. So can be some other example where, let's say, you want the delivery teams to know about a certain new tool or technology that you have implemented. Pair on that story with them, make them understand what's going on behind the scenes, how actually have you implemented. So cross-team pairing, where platform team members pair with ops, pair with devs, and that helps sharing the knowledge and avoid creating a silo. Lunch and learn sessions. I mean, this is an obvious one where you have sessions on anything new that you have implemented or anything else that you want to share with other teams. Not a service center. So like I mentioned earlier, platform team is not a service center where it's not like a ticket-based system where you create a ticket, send it, and they do some magic. So yeah, by doing all of these, you avoid creating a silo because there is constant communication, collaboration between different teams. So the second challenge. So I just spoke about silos in your organization and not creating a siloed team. But what about silos within your team? And I'll explain why that has been a challenge. So I'll give you an example of one of our clients where we had 8 to 10 devs in the platform team, and we were working with a lot of different technologies. And that's what the third way says, right? The third way says you constantly experiment and learn. And when you experiment and learn, you constantly keep changing and adopting new technologies. And even in general, I've seen platform teams have more tools and technologies than delivery teams, because they have to think about container orchestration and scheduling tools, monitoring and pipelines, like scripting languages, and all of those things. There are a lot of different tools and technologies that you use. So how do you make sure that if you have a big team or even a small team, how do you make sure all your devs have enough knowledge about different tools and technologies that you're using? That becomes challenging sometimes. So let me tell you some of the approaches that has worked for me. So story pair rotation. So if you're pairing, and I would recommend if you pair on stories within your team. So basically, if you're implementing pipeline as code, my example from earlier, you actually have two devs work together, and there are different pairing techniques. You can look it up online. But basically, you work together, implement it together, and one of the things is like key as a tech lead. If you're a tech lead for that team, is important to make sure that right people pair with each other. And I have another exercise later, and I'll explain why it's critical to actually pair up right people. Support pair rotation. So as a platform team, your clients or your customers are the delivery teams and ops team. You want to make sure they get the appropriate support when they need. They should be enabled, and they should be able to look at issues themselves. But sometimes they might need support where if they don't understand a certain tool in depth, they come to you and ask for support. So we used to, in some places, have a pair that would support. So basically, instead of random people in the team actually supporting, you had pairs. So one pair would support for one iteration, for example, support any support requests that come the platform team's way. And when they come, they look at it. If they don't understand a tool or technology that's required for that supporting that particular request, they would actually learn about that. They would ask another dev who's actually worked on that and get that knowledge. So that, and then you constantly rotate that support pair rather than just two people supporting all the time. You actually constantly rotate that so that the knowledge is spread across the team. Glossary of terms. So this, like for any other delivery teams, you want to make sure you're using the right terminology for your business terminology, right? Your domain should be understood. Same thing for platform team. We had a challenge once where we were using Rancher, and we were calling Rancher environment. When we said Rancher environment, it meant two different things for us, because Rancher calls environment differently than what our understanding was. So what we started doing is, and there were other examples as well. So what we started doing is we created glossary where we had all these terms agreed upon by the team members. And when we said Rancher environment, Rancher host, everyone knows what you are talking about rather than just guessing. So that helps, not having silos where people are talking about different things when they are saying, using a certain term. Postmortems. If you have an issue, if you have a production issue or any issue that you're looking at, do a postmortem. If I am the dev that I'm working on and I did a fix, I would have a postmortem. Either document that, have a meeting, send it on a chat, use any technique you want, but have a postmortem when you explain why and how you actually fixed it. This also means that you have action items. If you want to make sure that the same issue doesn't happen again, you make sure you have action items. You assign those action items to appropriate team members, and then they make sure that, let's say, some part of it needs more automation or some parts of it needs alerting. When an issue happens, you actually take care of it rather than just leave it alone. So this helps in spreading the knowledge, because when you do postmortem, you let your other team members know how you actually fixed it. So this is an interesting one, and I did that in my previous team, and it actually helped us a lot in spreading the knowledge. So what is this skills matrix exercise? So this is an exercise where you have all your technologies at the top, any tools that you're using, and then you have all your team members, all your devs on the left, and you, with them, right, this is a team exercise. All of you work together to rate what's your knowledge level, right? So it can be 1, which is you're an expert on that. 2, which you can work with it if needed. 3 means you don't have enough knowledge. So we did this once when we started, and then what we did is every sprint we kept on evaluating and looking at it again. And I mentioned earlier, story pairing and the rotation was also based on this. So which meant that, if you can see here, that so the example, so Martha here is 2 on Kubernetes, right? So you can see Martha is 2 here. David is 1. David knows about Kubernetes more than Martha. So what if there is a story that requires touching Kubernetes and doing something there? I would pair them up together. I would pair them up, so Martha now actually is 1 after working on a couple of stories that were Kubernetes related. So that helped us grow as a team, learn as a team, and then spread the knowledge. Yep. So the third challenge, building the right features. How do you actually make sure that you're working on the right thing? You're building the right feature for your customers. So one of the quotes that I like a lot is, building features is easy. Building the right features for the right people is difficult and challenging, right? You can build features, but how do you know you're building the right one and you're building it for the right people? Okay, so some of the techniques that have worked is promoting product thinking. Like your delivery teams, they are product teams. Your platform engineering team is also a product team. They are building a product for your customers, which are devs and ops team, building the platform, the delivery infrastructure for them. That's the product that you're providing. What does product thinking do is make you think holistically rather than just thinking about one feature. I've seen a lot of organizations have project-based versus product-based mentality, where you're just working on your project and you're part of delivering that project, but not thinking about the overall product when you're delivering features. And that promotes bad practices. So think about it as a product, and think holistically about the product rather than thinking about individual features. Yeah, so basically, as I mentioned, delivery infrastructure is your product. Observe and talk to your customers, with collaboration, but also make sure you observe and how they use your platform and the tools that you provide. Like in a product team, you would have a UI or a UX person, someone who's actually doing, like, you can do certain exercise. You can also have different, different customers and understand them, rather than just building features on its own. Observe how the customers use. If you see one of the devs using your pipeline and struggling with it, figure out why they are struggling, and then talk to them, figure out what would improve their experience. So work closely with them, and that'll bring up new features that actually make sense and help your customers. So basically, keep your customer at the center, right? Like any product or delivery team would. KPI, key for performance indicator driven. So one of the clients we worked with was actually last year. Yeah, last year. So basically what we did is we did this exercise. We came up with key performance indicators. Example being, what's your feature lead time? What's your time from when the business asks for a feature to when it goes to production? What's the time for a build to be deployed to a certain environment, right? So these can be some of the key performance indicators for the platform team. Come up with those with your customers and then use them to make sure that you're meeting the KPIs. So this is one of the challenges that I've seen whenever there is a central team or team that is supporting a lot of different customers. How do you actually make sure you're working on the right features? How do you make sure that you're prioritizing your features correctly, right? That's a challenge. If you're working on a certain feature that one delivery team wants, but what about the other delivery team that's asking for another feature? And then you're working with a security team to add a security step in your pipeline. How do you make sure that's more of a priority than any other delivery team? So you have work coming from all different directions. How do you actually make sure that it's prioritized correctly? So there is an exercise that we did at one of our clients. Similar, right? It's all about boxes and a spreadsheet. So, but this is an exercise we did where you have all different themes at the top. So my themes at this place could be logging, monitoring, business continuity, disaster recovery, security, delivery infrastructure support, and so on and so forth, right? These are just examples. You'll have a lot of other, and these themes are actually most of them, or actually all of them, I would say, are non-functional requirements. These are not business requirements that your end customer, right? So if you're building a website, your users don't care about logging and monitoring that are using the website, but your customers as a platform team, your devs and ops team care about logging and monitoring. So an exercise, and then you have a timeline. So if you're starting a new project, or if you're in between as well, you want to make sure that you have a timeline. Now, soon for you might be 3 months, for some teams might be 2 months, sometimes some teams might be 2 weeks, right? So soon, later, near release, post release, right? So that timeline will differ based on your team, and then your teams will differ based on what technologies and tools and what are the requirements. One case was, which I haven't mentioned here, but we were working with a healthcare client where they had HIPAA compliance, right? So we want to make sure that there is enough HIPAA, your logs don't have any secrets, right? Logs don't have any patient data, for example, and things like that. So all of them are non-functional requirements, and then you work with different customers, your stakeholders. So work with your delivery teams, work with your operations team, work with security team. If you have a security group, work with business, right? Business is critical here as well, because business has a say on how the disaster recovery or business continuity happens once the software goes to production. So involve all different stakeholders and do this exercise so that you know that you're working on the right feature at the right time, right? And for the right customer. So yeah, this exercise helped us a lot, and this is how actually it looked like when we did it initially. So we also used some different stickies, and I know you can't read it, but basically we had personas, we had stickies to assign it to different teams. So like this one here you can't see, but pen testing, penetration testing, it's assigned to the security team. So we did this exercise that helped us to make sure what should we work now, what's coming next, what's coming in 3 months, and obviously things might change, but this gives you a nice visual, and you share this with all your stakeholders so they know what's coming, they understand what's going on. Okay. So next challenge being agile, right? Everyone wants to be agile. Platform team also should be agile, so they can react, respond to any needs from their business, and then they can react quickly. How are you agile? So some of the techniques. So story writing, right? As a product team, delivery team, you write stories. Similarly, you write stories for a platform team. So what's different there? There is a difference. The stories that you write for a platform team are a lot different than what you do for your product teams. Stories are more technical. I'll give you an example. We were implementing secret management, right? We are implementing secret management, so our secrets are not committed to source control, but they are accessible through secret management tool. So the stories acceptance criteria will be different. The stories acceptance criteria will be, what's the storage backend you're using? Where are you storing your secrets? What kind of authentication you need? If you're using Active Directory, why not just use Active Directory for authenticating? What kind of auditing you need? Do you want to make sure that when someone is accessing a secret, you're auditing that? What kind of access controls you need? Not everyone has access to all the secrets. So as you can see, this stories acceptance criteria is a lot different than when you are building a feature where you're adding a button for someone, for your end customer to your UI. The acceptance criteria will be a lot different. These are more technical stories, and that's why it requires technical analysis. So if you guys work with business analysts, we had business analysts in one of the platform teams, and the business analyst actually understood the technical jargons and how a certain thing works. If we are working on a story with DNS, they understand how DNS works. So you need someone who's more technical to write these stories. At one place, we decided we don't need a business analyst, but we will, as a tech lead or other members, would write the stories because they understand how the technology works. So that's a little different than being a product team and writing stories. Yeah, I mean, I have mentioned this a couple of times. It's not a ticket-based. Yeah, other agile practices, right? Other practices like stand-ups, retros, and desk checks, kickoffs. Do all of that as part of platform team. Doesn't mean that you stop doing those and not follow those. Yeah, I mean, this one I went through in the previous one, but again, prioritization. You need prioritization for the features that you're working on. So operate as an agile team, as a delivery app development team. You should use all of those practices. They might be different, as the story writing, as the analysis is more technical, but you still have to do, I would recommend doing those practices. Okay, so next challenge. Yeah, that's a good question. So we did at one place decide to go Kanban because there was a lot of flux and we were not planning for the iteration wasn't something that worked for us. I wouldn't say Kanban is the way to go always, but like with Agile and practices that you do with product teams, and some product teams, Kanban works better. Go with Kanban in that case. But I have seen Kanban used more in this case, but sometimes it also actually encourages bad practice because then you stop, just do stuff. So yeah, I mean, I would say either, right? There is no answer to it where go this way or that way. I've used both in different platform engineering teams. So yeah, the next challenge, embracing rapid adoption. So with the third way, right? Experimentation and learning, you're constantly improving stuff. How do you make sure that your customers adopt those tools and technologies and adopt it rightly? Yep, I know. I'm running out of time. All right. Okay, so I think this is the last one. Showcases, right? Keep doing showcases. Show what tools and technologies, new tools and technologies that. So same thing as you would do for your product teams. Enablement. I have already spoken about this a lot, but yeah, enable your customers. Maintainability. Yeah, this is an important where make sure that your tools and technologies you're building are maintainable rather than so rapid adoption. Make sure that you're not actually breaking stuff so that you're building trust with your customers. So instead of building something and then if something breaks, that doesn't give enough trust to your customers. So one of the places what we did is we had scripts that were we were using common scripts to used by the pipelines to deploy stuff, but we versioned it. We versioned it so that we had a beta release and then we had a stable release. So anytime we made any changes to those common scripts, we tested it with our test pipelines, saw them working, and then once it was working, then only tagged them as stable, so that the next time the delivery teams use the pipeline, they get that stable version. So thereby building trust. If you keep breaking stuff, then that doesn't build trust with your customers. So yeah, these are the key things to make sure that you are doing rapid adoption. You want your customers to adopt the new tools and technologies, but you also make sure that they are stable and you're not breaking stuff. Okay, I think this is the last one. So what are the different models for platform engineering team? I've seen two different ones. One is a temporary team. So for example, you are starting a new project, brand new greenfield project. You might decide to have a platform team that is there for a temporary time, that builds up all this delivery infrastructure, builds up a platform that you need, and then they disband. They either go back to the delivery teams or they enable the delivery teams enough so that they can take care of the platform going forward. That's one model that I've seen work. The other one is, especially if you want standardization, if I have seen teams stick around for a long time, where they actually constantly keep working on that, but also kind of enable the delivery teams. So I've seen both models. Both models work in different cases. I would say aim for temporary team so that you are actually giving enough knowledge to the delivery teams that they can take care of it. Obviously, there are limitations where if your delivery team is not comfortable working with operational stack and all these tools, and that can happen in different organizations, and that might become challenging. But aim for having a temporary team and then disband so that the delivery teams take care of themselves. I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, this is just a summary of what we spoke about, different team structures. We spoke about platform engineering, when and why can be used, and these 5 challenges that I've seen and what has worked for me, and then the 2 different models. I just have a quick show of hands. So this was one of the slides from earlier, and I'm working on another talk on actually talking about individually all of these and what works in what scenario and some of my experiences. Who would be interested in a talk like that? Can I quick show? Wow, okay. I think almost everyone, but okay. Great, yeah, that's it. I'm done. Yes, I will put it on Meetup. I'll send the link on Meetup. Yes.
How do you right size this team given that it's temporary and not so that it doesn't become important?
Yes, yes. Yeah, so the question is, how do you make sure that it's the right size team? How many team members do you need? Yeah, I mean, how would you do it for an application development team, right? It's same. try to keep it small, right? As any team, you need the right skills when you're starting, right? If you have, let's say, 5 members, 5 devs in your team, you want to make sure they cover all the different skill sets that you need for your platform team. Someone who is an expert with, let's say, you're using AWS, someone who's good with infrastructure as code. So I have worked with teams of different size from 4 to 8, I would say, right? A typical Agile team for your delivery would be kind of similar sized. Try to keep it small. In some cases I have seen where I would try to avoid, but it was a big organization. There are actually different parts to platform engineering. There was a data part. There was a delivery infrastructure part, which was taking care of automation and stuff. And then there was an architecture part. So they were different. They were 3 different teams within platform engineering. So yeah, that I mean, it depends on the size of organization and what kind of skill sets you need on those teams. It might work where you have 3 small teams within that. So yeah.
This is not just a function of the number of app features.
No, I don't think so, because I mean, it's all about automating stuff. Once you automate, it should work for any, like, it's not that it multiplies with number of app dev teams. If you have already automated your infrastructure provisioning, that should work for all. Or yeah. Actually, I think he was first, so yeah.
Thank you, Adarsh, for a great talk. I'm Rahul. I run a deep learning startup. And my question is, how can we introduce a dynamic billing with these DevOps strategies? Or how do we manage the billing to a client with all of the agility that we implemented?
Dynamic what? Sorry.
Billing? Or
Billing.
how do we manage the payments from a client with the agility that we implemented at the DevOps level?
So
You mean optimizing operational costs?
Oh yeah, okay.
Right.
So let's say, for example, your AWS cost you're talking about, right? Like make sure that.
Not only that, if you have a client that's paying for a development and they're interested in how the DevOps are allocated, how each process of the DevOps works, and how can we implement that agile strategy in billing too?
Okay,
Do you have
so
any experience?
yeah, let me try to rephrase and see if I understand it correctly. So basically, you're more worried about how do you actually make a case for a platform team, make sure that whatever the costs are covered by the budget that the business has for having a delivery team. Okay, so how do you make a case? I'll start with that, right? So basically, you have to explain the benefits of a platform team, right? You are getting all the automation that will help and reduce KPIs, right? As I mentioned earlier, have key performance indicators from your customers, and try to reduce the feature lead time. And using these tools and technologies, you will actually improve the continuous delivery pipeline and the time to production, and that will help. So you need to come up with those key performance indicators, explain, and obviously whatever the cost for having a team, explain that against how much you're spending as an organization having a team like that. Is that what you're looking for? Or? So are you more talking about different devs kind of can be allocated to different teams, work on different? I'm still kind of not understanding.
Right. So
Maybe we can take this after the Q&A. We can continue.
Yeah. So I want to understand the question better, because I know like there are few parts to it, and as an organization you want to make sure that you're agile, but also make sure your budget and so let's take it. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We have another question here. Sorry.
You said that.
I think he was next.
You said that you advocated for a temporary product platform team.
Yes.
I guess do you see it? Just want to make sure I understand. So you have this team that theoretically would come together for a certain amount of time to build the platform, and then how does maintenance happen? And then who does the typical ops? And there's still ops responsibilities, right? So how does that work?
Yeah, so you'll still, in most cases, have an ops team that's operationals, they're still using the tools, right? So if they are monitoring applications and servers, platform is providing them those tools. That's one part of it. And the second part of it, the reason I say is that make sure that you are enabling all the delivery teams. In terms of ownership, yes, there needs to be, the delivery teams need to be empowered, capable enough to actually run that platform going forward. And that's why I mentioned I've seen that as a challenge some places where you still need someone central to own it. But if your teams are cross-functional, they have all these skills, they can actually maintain the platform. It requires communication between different delivery teams and all those things. So it requires your organization to be mature enough to kind of have that.
Is there like a sweet spot in terms of like an engineering team, or is that just makes sense? Would you say platform development?
So couple of criteria that I would look at. One is the operational skills within your delivery team, right? I mean, if they don't have it, make sure that you enable them. But even if still you struggle, I've seen an organization just struggling with that, then you might want to keep it around. In terms of sweet spot, like that, so that's one. Another thing is if you need significant tooling and automation, right? And you're starting a new project, especially, or even in some cases, you are doing a digital transformation where you actually want to automate stuff. In that case, actually getting a platform team together helps because they are really focused on automation, making sure that their KPIs, what they have is reducing the time from committing the code to production. So they are really focused on that. So if you have some of these concerns or requirements, then I would say platform team makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it's the whole talk about different team structures that I just mentioned about 4 different types, where it doesn't mean that platform is the answer for everything, but there are other types that work. So yeah. Anyone else?
First of all, thank you very much for your comments and insights. Question: when you have the merged DevOps team, have you seen or how have you overcome challenges where you've got competing priorities between addressing production problems and delivering on development priorities?
Yeah, so culture, right? DevOps is all about culture. And that's why a lot of organizations struggle, where they want to make sure that you are working on the right thing, but it takes maturity, and that's why shared ownership, right? Where even if you have 2 separate teams, you're working towards one goal, which is making sure that your feature lead time is less, but your software is also stable in production, right? So I would say DevOps is more about culture than anything else, right? There is automation part to it, but culture is critical. Those 2 books, again, I would recommend, Phoenix Project and DevOps Handbook. Really good books, and it has some cases on how actually that transformation happened. Like Phoenix Project is a novel where actually authors talk about how an organization with these silos actually came over it and then resolved. So yeah, it takes organizational maturity, culture change to actually achieve that.
Maybe let's take one last question, and then we have more time for networking and talking with Adarsh offline.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Like,
so if you have
we have
offline.
some more time, but I want to give everybody some time to network and talk offline as well.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Rich. I'm hiring a team to be the platform engineering teams. What skills do you think I should be looking for?
Right. So couple of different things, right? So responsibilities. So you have to figure out what kind of platform do you want to build, right? So look at, I mean, I gave an example earlier, but let's see if I can. Yeah. So I gave an example here where, I mean, these are some of the components that your platform teams should provide, but figure out what kind of competence you need. You don't need to decide, right? You don't need to decide that you have to use Jenkins, but someone who's worked with pipelines, right? Containers, right? If you want to use containers or Amazon, AWS. So look at those different type of tools and technologies rather than which ones, but type. Typically what I have seen is someone who understands infrastructure really well, right? You need someone who's worked with, if you're using AWS, then that's a different thing, but some companies have in-premise infrastructure, someone who understands that. You need someone who understands what the DevOps perspective is, right? Understand how applications are built or deployed. You need people with infrastructure as code skills, Terraform, Kubernetes, using container platforms, Kubernetes. But I would say big part of it will be environment provisioning and using all like HashiCorp tools, right? Like Terraform and all of these that are there. In some cases, it depends on what kind of organization and domain. Security might be one of the skills you're looking for, right? So HIPAA compliance, all of the other compliance, people who have worked with security tools and know what you. So yeah, there's no like defined stuff, but you have to figure out what type of tools you need, what kind of a platform do you want to be, right? I would recommend API-driven self-serve, and if you want to do that, you need people who can put together bells and whistles to provide that platform.
One last, is it quick? Maybe.
Eugene, why do you have questions?
Hey, Adarsh. So my question is more of, so let's say you're starting a greenfield project. When would you say is the best time to bring on a platform engineering team? Would you say, because you have all these requirements that you can gather from like the business that you can do ahead of the application delivery teams coming on board? Just curious, like based on your experience, when did you say is the ideal time to bring them on?
I know why you're asking the question. Okay. So Eugene's question is, if you're starting a brand new project, a greenfield project, at what time would you bring together the platform team? So I would say before you bring on the application development teams. And the reason is I have learned, and we have learned from a mistake, as in you bring in the platform team late, so that app dev teams are already building business functionality, and they don't have the pipelines and the infrastructure that they need to actually deploy and test. So I would say, ideally, there's no fixed time frame, but at least a couple of weeks or few weeks in advance, so that they can at least have basic stuff, like basic pipelines that the teams that they'll be onboarding will need, so that they have a head start over,
We talked about expanding the platform. So in a way, you can do that consultants.
standing. Sorry?
You talked
Oh,
about
disbanding.
expanding
Oh, yeah.
The platform team, right?
Yes.
So in a way, the best option is to bring in a consultant, right? To come in, do your work, and hand it over.
I wouldn't say necessarily all the time. Like if you have the skills that you need for a platform team within your organization.
That's not very DevOps, right? Like the point of DevOps is that you develop the skills in-house too.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get specialists and experts who have done this before, but the goal for them should be, again, enabling your organization so that they can take care of. So I wouldn't say, bringing consultants is always the answer. But if you don't have the skills, then yes. Okay, I'll still be around, so if you have any questions. Thank you.
Really sorry to interrupt this interesting discussion, but so we have 10 more minutes at least to stay around and talk. Just 2 quick reminders. Next talks, 16th of August, will be How to Become a Product-Centric Organization by Jordan Brown, and 24th of August, a new talk on mobile and iOS, so mobile application development. Don't forget to leave us feedbacks if you have any. That's it. Thank you for joining us. Good night.